Oh, we got Peter. All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning to wake up and deliver twice the good mornings this morning. Just starting up with some brain food and coffee. As always, I'm going to start off with a nice little quote for the week. The chief trick to making good mistakes is not to hide them, especially not from yourself. Instead of turning away in denial when you make a mistake, you should become a connoisseur of your own mistakes. Turn them over in your mind as they were works of art, which in a way they are. The fundamental reaction to any mistakes ought to be, well, I won't do that again. I thought that was like a pretty good thing to start the morning. Second week of June. We got a lot of great things to talk about this morning. Got myself, Matt, and go ahead, John. I guess John. And John. We're gonna and I can go ahead, John. We're gonna start off as always with some LinkedIn posts. We have a few ideas. I don't know, John. Do you want to start off with Thomas's, or do you want to do the cost control? Or do you want to do the Mexico-China nearshoring? All right. So we're gonna start off with Thomas Wasson's post. I thought it was a pretty cool one to kind of start off the morning with. It does focus on what the marketplace is currently doing. And what I mean by that is the pricing is it adjusting? Are we getting a price adjustment in the marketplace that's increasing and finally rebounding after being in the slumps in the last little bit? And he kind of goes into it that the fuel has rebounded, and the lower fuel prices is kind of giving some energy to a lot of people, hoping that we're finally hit the bottom. We're starting to trail upwards. I don't know. I think there might be a double bottom. I think this is just a little bit of hope. I think we had a little bit of produce interaction where people are starting to move a little bit more produce than normal because we've had a lot of low inventories. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think it's a time to celebrate yet. It's time to be a little bit excited because it's moving the right pieces, but not entirely.
Honestly,
what do you think, John? What was your take when you read that?
I think just believing that all of a sudden the rates are just going to turn around is really is just hopeful. You know what I mean? Right now you do get a lot of a challenge, for example, with how things are priced and how integrated it is and stuff like that. But fuel has always been one of those like really challenging domains, and it just becomes, everyone's just ready for the next explanation as to either why it can either go up or down. You know what I mean? So it's like I've found over the years that they just get into whatever the next thing is to describe why they're going to just change it. I don't know. I don't think it's as patterned or whatever. I think it's just it's so volatile to whatever people choose.
It's a relief. I think when people are looking for relief and any signs of relief, that's where they're kind of grappling into, because we've been in this downturn for a while. So people are obviously visually nervous about anything, and any signs of hope they're latching on. I don't think this is something that we're going to see. It's going to continue for all the way to the end of the season. I'm still skeptical if Q4 is going to be as impactful, but I guess we'll touch upon that when later today, because we're going to be chatting with Jessica on video about Timo and Sheehan. I think that's going to be a great,
for sure. The only thing I really love about his post, and I bitch about this all the time. Well, I shouldn't say I bitch about it, but I kind of throw it out there all the time. People talk about fuel surcharge, like, oh, fuel surcharge is just a thing, right? And you're kind of like, oh, guys, it's just the market. But he calls out right in his post too. It's like, hey, especially for carriers who essentially lean on this to make more money. It's like, yeah, exactly, guys. You know what I mean? I remember having a conversation one time with a carrier where I was like, listen, this is like your kind of program, the way you've got your percentages. I'm like, this is kind of bullshit. And I'm like, I want to have it adjusted. And they just flat out said, he goes, look, I'll adjust it if you want, but I'm just going to increase it somewhere else, because at the end of the day, we're just trying to get to a number.
Exactly. And for those who have joined us, welcome again this morning. If you ever want to raise your hand and chat, because this is a conversation, it's not just about me and John chatting, it's about anybody else calling in, quote unquote, old school style. click the button to raise your hand, and I'll bring you up to the conversation. Moving on, do you want to talk a little bit about the Matt Silver, Mexico and U.S. nearshoring and taking on China as in a position? And we'll touch upon it a little bit because we'll be more in it with later this afternoon, but I think kind of goes into that rebound position of this might be the hope that we're looking for as more things come to North America and more trucking is needed, but it's going to be at a congested border. I think it's going to be more of a bottleneck in the end than any help.
Well, I mean, if you're going to, as long as you're getting
quick thoughts on that.
Or real nearshoring, right? Like, I mean, you know, some people are just shifting manufacturing from China to another Asian country and then just using like Mexico as a landing warehouse or something like that to hold inventory. So I think it depends first and foremost, like, you know, what kind of reshoring are you really getting? You know what I mean? Oh yeah, bring her.
Oh, we got Kat asking to come up. So bring up Kat here. Good morning, Kat. You gotta hit the unmute button. Oh, there you go. You're all about this.
Good morning. Yes, I've had my coffee.
Wow.
I had a curious thought about this whole China moving their manufacturing to Mexico, and I thought that maybe this would have something to do with the Xinjiang ban.
What's the Xinjiang ban?
The human rights violation ban. So anything that comes from that specific region into North America is automatically banned.
That's true too. There are a lot of places that they're banning from shipping out of China, and it's creating different we were considering different places to ship from because you can't ship from those locations anymore.
Yeah, but it was that specific region that both governments, the Canadian government and the U.S. government, issued an automatic ban. So, and that was pertaining to human rights violations and such. So I thought that was interesting that they started moving their manufacturing companies into
imagine
Mexico.
This. So it's like, hey guys, we're here back at home, and we're very, and this is just a general comment. It's like, oh, we're very abusive. We do these things that are very shady, and we do it to like dominate and drop the price. It's like, okay. And now all of a sudden it's like they're having challenges. It's like these same companies are what? They're going to go to Mexico, they're going to reestablish operations, and all of a sudden they're going to be 100% different. It's like, why don't you just be different at home?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I was thinking. I'm like, this could go like, it's kind of like, it was an interesting situation, right? Where they were like, exactly, how are they going to pursue this manufacturing thing in Mexico? Are they going to start doing the same things? Because essentially, if it does come from that, I mean, that's something that I need to dig deeper as well. Which part of China is moving their manufacturing into Mexico? But I figured that essentially it would still be ran by the same exact people, right?
We also got to consider, and which, Kat, you and I heard about it when we were in Mexico, was the consideration of Mexico have a problem with the child. They don't consider child labor, but the youth working in a lot of places, being 15 years old, for them that's a normal kind of start of an age to work full time. But for Canadians and Americans, it's like no, you got to at least 18 years old. So they're battling that whole image too. So it's kind of like by definition, is it child labor? Is it not? And then is that not good? And or is that a double-edged sword? I think that's
so here's the thing. So we talked about it the other day, but last week where you see like Alibaba being Alibaba Guaranteed, right now is like a service that they're launching for their marketplace, where they can be like, no, we guarantee quality of suppliers and, compliance and all of these different things. So it actually really raises the question quickly of, what type of strategy is going to be more effective? Like, do you actually want to see people setting up separate operations in different countries and then believe that, either the governments or the local laws? Because to your point, right? Like in Mexico, if they have different standards, expectations or whatever, like what does it take before someone thinks that that's abusive, right? You know what I mean? Or you could say that anything that essentially is taking advantage of one country's position or one culture's position or their beliefs to benefit, another part of the world and where they would hold something differently. Like it gets into the same argument. So it'd be interesting to see if something like this nearshoring, where they're actually moving their operations, becomes, more something that people are thinking is the solution, as opposed to these kind of like endorser guarantees where it's like, no, we'll do all the right things, or we'll have institutions, back at home that are more compliant or in line with, our customers' expectations.
Exactly.
Yeah, this is just gonna send me into a rabbit hole of investigation with China, Mexico, and all that, and that Xinjiang region. So I will do so, and I will let you guys know what I find.
Yes, please. John, you want to take it away on Aaron Rubin's post?
Aaron did a really cool post last week. So it's like shifting gears, guys, going from like Mexico and something super heavy to something a lot lighter and just kind of like, Aaron and I guess Shapiro are really promoting now a new feature with their WMS that's all about cost management. So I know you and I talk about it a lot. I'm a huge proponent of like activity-based routing. I see Mikey's in there. Mikey does some great work on the delivery side. But, really having costs and sort of revenue models that are about, what time is actually invested to get certain activity done, and then, obviously the costs associated with, with those times. So now Shapiro is able to track in a way that they feel is far more accurate and really dialed into the activity of the warehouse, the actual costs that a warehouse, a 3PL provider using their warehouse would have fulfilling orders. So they would actually say proper, I'll put that like in quotes or whatever, but P&Ls on the different, customers and understanding who's a good customer, who's a bad customer, so to speak. Even though no one will admit someone's a bad customer, that kind of happens. So yeah, that I thought was very interesting to see, and he made a video about it last week and a couple of follow-up posts or whatever. So totally interesting to check that out if you guys are into the warehouse space, WMS type world or anything like that, and then even what you think about it, or if you have any thoughts about it. I can tell you I use it a lot on the delivery side. Huge fan, and you don't typically get the same challenges with a time and activity based model when you're talking about pricing and revenue. You can still undersell and you can still discount or whatever, but you're very aware of what you're doing.
Yeah, and for clarification,
yes, that's true.
It's not any products.
That is most certainly not an endorsement. Please use the WMS of your dreams. But it's just more cool in the sense of seeing how I took it more in the sense of the evolution of sort of the industry, of different providers, right? Like I think everything used to be a lot more, I'll say like back of the napkin, not in an insulting way, but I think there was so much subjectivity. I think a lot of people kind of leveraged their understanding, their experience. It was a lot of anecdotal kind of like, yeah, I think this kind of should be that. So I think getting into a much more structured sort of data system, I just think is beneficial for providers that are like, grinding hard every day. Like fulfillment and being in the warehouse it's not easy to do that every day. So I love seeing options to make that world easier. Well, or at least more straightforward.
I mean, we can probably do a whole different series of shows of just experimenting with different WMS, TMSs, all the other MSs out there, and just do a dedicated show on reviewing them live, because I think that in itself would be interesting. There's so many different products out there. Sometimes you don't even know, and you think one's great or one has a cool feature, and then you kind of start going through and be like, there's nothing out there. And even self-proprietary built ones don't encompass everything. That's why I always highly recommend trying new things and working on different positions on different softwares. Because you don't know what you need, right? And sometimes you just need a few add-ons, and sometimes you need a whole new system too, right?
The funny thing is too,
especially
the more that someone will sit down and be like, "Oh, we do everything," you can almost guarantee that they do nothing very well. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, no, we built it for everything. Like we've got like Dave's like Dickie D ice cream right up to like world-class manufacturing. It's like, oh, that should be interesting to see how you did that.
One thing I will note, I think that this is the year, in the next couple of years, this is going to be a great big changeover for a lot of companies into new MSs or building it, because a lot of legacy companies are coming due on their softwares. So if anybody's, a lot of these softwares are going to be getting a lot of big bumps. I know a lot of big trucking companies in North America have been around for like the last, 40 years. They bought softwares in the late 90s, early 2000s. They've been patchworking it, and now they're really coming to a do it because they can't do APIs. They don't connect well. They don't do tracking for a lot of different customers. And you have small, nimble brokers and carriers coming up where they're able to do all the things they need to for a customer, and then the customer experience is completely changing. So I'm curious to see the landscape change in the next little bit as legacy big players start going, hey, do we build our own thing? Do we have enough time to build it? Or we're just going to buy a whole bunch of software and change our own landscape and how that pain point's going to work out.
A lot of these, like, I'd love to see the shift with, sort of major retailers, major manufacturers or whatever, moving away from things like SAP and Oracle and all of these like sort of big and entrenched brands, which I think they dominated a certain space for a while. I'd love to see what would happen if they started leaning into a little bit more modern offering. Not to say that those software, like, I'm sure they try to make it modern, but like SAP HANA, like, it's, we've got a code for that. Like it's basically like table 10,000, and it's like, to access that screen, it's like QTWXZZ422. Just got to remember that. Like, that's right. That guy on the dock shipping like e-com order, 150,000 for the day is just dying to do that. Like, you know what I mean?
That's funny. I mean, a lot of those softwares became popular because they were the only able ones to create those TMSs and WMSs and had the engineers. Since then, I mean, there's hundreds more just popping up every single day. Not to dwell too much on it, I think we should move on to our what we consider hot topics in the industry.
Your hot topic.
My hot topics. In the industry, one that we're kind of I wanted to touch upon was the one at Freightways Future of Supply Chain was earlier in the week. They had a lot of great speakers, a lot of different people talking about logistics from their perspectives. One that I wanted to zone in on because I think he's an interesting character. Love him or hate him. Ryan, the CEO of Flexport, he's trying to rebrand himself, but he's under a lot of pressure from a lot of the challenges that he created in the marketplace by the way he did things. And Ryan is now saying, hey, AI is posed for big things in the global supply chain. Well, obviously, I don't think that was groundbreaking for a guy that's
a tech company,
Flexport, and trying to be the tech company. I felt that he was lacking in the comment of innovation. I felt like saying hey, AI is the next big thing was a very safe comment.
But AI is safe for him. Like, that's the best thing that he could have. He wants to replace all of his people with bots. Like, I mean, they're managing. They're managing transactions. Like, his dream world is being like, oh my God, I just wish I could have a computer sitting at that desk that's 1,000 people.
He does get a lot of hate from a lot of the things that he's done, and I don't disagree with you. The pure way that he's kind of eroded trust in the marketplace. I don't know how often everybody goes on the groups. I know John and I go on there often. The industry itself hates him, I find. But I don't feel it's the same sentiment outside of the industry. I think outside the industry, a lot of people feel like that he is a savior for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's because honestly, like, to the uninitiated, it sounds great, right? Like, hey, we're going to have systems, we're going to connect all the information, everything's going to flow really smooth. And like, to the people who actually do the work, it's like insulting AF in the sense of being like, guys, like, look, for as hard as you work, like, clearly the problem is you don't know how to manage your transactions and paperwork. So let me fix that. I'm going to clean up your world, make you guys better. It's like, listen, dude, like, no, nothing, like loads weren't getting delivered simply just because someone's like, oh my God, I couldn't find the bill of lading. Like, you know what I mean? It's like things were getting done. So I definitely think that, I definitely think that, there's a bit of a gap there. I mean, even his comments about Dave Clark, right? Where he's like, we hired Dave, we wanted him to be our CEO. And he's like, we wanted him to be our leader. But he obviously got too ambitious and he wanted to spend all this money and he wanted to get us there right now. And we kind of realized like, hey, maybe we don't need to do that. I.e., the infrastructure of the logistics is wicked expensive, super hard to navigate and manage. And, you know, for them, they're like, we just rather kind of be a connector kind of platform essentially. But it's funny because I don't know how well they're going to compete, honestly, or how well they'll be able to compete. I know they've got their little like their deal with Shein or whatever right now, but they all want to do that. Everybody wants to do the end-to-end management now, like, you know, whether it's Amazon or Maersk or anyone, like they're all starting to want to offer those services. Alibaba is doing the same kind of thing. Like, so it'll be curious to see if like a company like Flexport can even continue to stand out, especially when organizations that actually have more infrastructure are going to get involved, or more assets in some part of the game.
It's interesting to note that even a lot of like a lot of retailers are now coming into the logistics space and offering it as a service, and there's going to be far more fierce competition, which is in a way great because we're going to start creating better efficiencies, a lot more focus. A lot of new companies are going to come up because you're going to offer different offerings. But at the same time, to your point, like I know we were talking about earlier, there's a lot of great software out there that I think is way better than the Flexport and what it offers. But maybe not so much in the freight forwarding position that is as visual and vocal. And that's the thing, like that marketing and branding makes a big difference.
I think Gravity
right?
is pretty similar though, honestly, in a lot of what they do or how they present. Sorry?
Are they as known to people? Do they know them as well? Like is it as
I think they're known
Flexport,
by the larger
right?
businesses. I think that's where Flexport probably got a little bit more notoriety, is by going after players that typically wouldn't get that type of attention, at least initially. You know what I mean? And I think that going after, that level of merchant or something like that is probably what got them a lot of attention. But I wanted to call out just like one thing about like the Flexport thing, and we'd shown it yesterday. So we're gonna put up a little. I'll put it in the comments later. But there was this really cool post about visual management, and very simple visual management and the impact to operations, right? And I want to put it out there only as like kind of like a juxtaposition to like, here's someone like Ryan Peterson, AI, more systems, more technology, more this, more that. And on the other side, you know, you get this like exposure to, hey, here's something super simple that has like huge impact. So what this video is, and like I said, we'll put it in the comments, but you putting it right now. Please check it out.
Right
it's
now.
Very cool. But what it is and like I used to fly a lot, like a lot. And for as much as I flew, it's like I always hated going through the airports. The fact that I could board first was the only real benefit to like the status and everything, because you got away from a lot of the noise. But this system in this airport is super cool. So it like projects down green or blue squares onto the ground and the seat number, and it's moving people along in a row. So it's like you don't actually just have like Bob and Tim and Sarah and Susie and all of these people just trying to like, you know, like get to the front of the line. It's like stand in your square, and your square is going to move. And I know that sounds really kind of like silly, but honestly, the operational flow, the simplicity and the improvement, and there's no reason that kind of like technology or that kind of approach shouldn't have already been thought about. And I just thought it was a really interesting kind of alternative to being like, hey, here's AI to save the world because we're too dumb to figure it out. And on the other side, it's like, I'm just going to actually put these colored blocks on the ground, and it's going to work really, really well.
And when we talked about this a little bit last night, I think it was very important. I think it's very important we touch upon it here. This could change warehouse operations as well, and in a very nice, meaningful way, without being too intrusive on how to manage people. Instead of having your supervisor over your shoulder, it becomes a visual way. And now, if you throw in some glasses that is augmented reality, nobody else will see that stuff on the ground but yourself. And you can be working in your own little world.
That's actually
right?
very
That's
cool.
what I thought about after
that, but now it made me think about that computer you showed me, that like all the screens are just on the glasses. That's a really cool idea. You know, if you're thinking about a warehouse and all of a sudden all the visual management is unique to the person that's handling. So depending on their order, depending on, whatever customer they're handling or whatever, you know, all of the staging, all of the doors, all of the movement of product being really directed and orchestrated, which is the new popular term, guys. By the way, you're going to hear orchestrated. All orchestrated is going to be the new pivot kind of thing, I think, for 2024, late 2024 and 25. But yeah, that's a really good idea. We should go patent that very quickly.
I think it's more I think it's interesting because you can manage the flow of people as well, right? Like it's not just, sometimes you might have to take a person to take the longer route. So the flow of goods moves through the warehouse a lot quicker. And someone might just want to take a shortcut, but then he'll bump into a forklift and he might go into a congested area and it will create a bottleneck. This way, you kind of create this way to manage people through a visual way that kind of gets you into the right position where you want to be.
Now all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I love this. I actually like these like AI, glasses like Google Glass or like the Apple, all of these things. I'm always like, man, this is like, personally, I admit, like sometimes I get a little bit judgy and I'm like, oh, this is like, I don't know if I'd ever want to be like wearing these things. But now all of a sudden I'm like, this is great. And like, even I saw Mikey, I saw you react there. And think about it. The last 100 meters, like the right doors lighting up, the right instructions, like, people don't have to look at their handheld or their phone these days, since most companies just use their phones. But actually, that's also very cool, Matt, too, because the other thing we talked about is the idea of using, we talk a lot about using something like AI, not to drive it, but AI particularly in the realm of voice recognition, so that you could take the feedback from the operator kind of in a very natural tone, like natural language speaking kind of way, and then have all of these rules with the AI bucketing or properly classifying or interacting with them, in a way that then they don't have to interact with specific menus or have specific inputs on a device.
Yeah, I think beyond obviously the document processing aspect of AI, which I'm glad Ed's in here because he had a great talk in the past week at the conference at CITT. There's a lot of great little neat applications for people management within AI that's not intrusive. That I think there's an opportunity there to manage them in a way that you don't feel like you're being micromanaged. But some people, not to say they need micromanaging, but they definitely need a way to kind of show them what they need to work on next in a way that makes it more efficient for them. Because everybody has a brain fart moment. Everybody has a moment where they're like, oh shit, what am I going to do next? And I think it's a great, fantastic way to be like, hey, keep you on task. You do a great job. You just, you're off focus at this moment.
Nice.
Which is, I
okay,
think
well,
neat.
Look, we're coming up to time. I want to let you guys know we're hoping today that we were able to get our tech set up properly so that we can follow up. You'll probably see some of these brought back up. I don't know what you want to do one today, LinkedIn, and like maybe share some of that. I actually like the glasses thing. I think we should run with that. Maybe we'll get someone to invest.
Yeah, that's something it's already patented by me. I've already started with the lawyers.
I've already filed a patent on this side.
that and the Costco one that everybody liked earlier this week too. We didn't get a chance to talk about some of the news, but we had a great conversation so far today. I mean, it's
we should. What we'll do though in the comments on this, we'll just link a couple of the other more interesting news things that we saw this week too. And then if anyone really loved it, we can make sure to get deeper into it, like on Monday next week.
And thank you, Peter, Mikey, and Phil. Phil, I believe, came all the way from
I'm pretty
England
sure Mikey's on the West Coast
this morning.
No, that's also, I know.
He's quite up and early too.
Yeah.
So, and thank you, everybody else that joined us this morning. It's always fantastic. We'll be back again next week, same time, and with fresh ideas and different things that are happening in the logistics. If you guys have anything that you always want us to add or chat about, feel free to shoot us a message or just raise your hand and join the conversation. Again, our idea here is to have a conversation with everybody and talk about what's going on in logistics.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
And on that note, you guys have a wonderful day.
Bye.
We'll chat next week.